Thank you very much for joining us once again on PM Express. As you may well know, Parliament is back for another meeting. There's a lot happening that Parliament will have to deal with. Since Parliament had been away, the IMF due has been concluded. We've seen the program, the IMF program. Will Parliament get a chance to hear from the Finance Minister? That's one thing that we'll look at. Again, since Parliament had been away, there's been a major Supreme Court verdict that has ensured that one of the members of Parliament from the minority side, his name has been expunged from parliamentary records. That in itself has become a subject for some controversy because the Speaker had said he's quite not sure how to implement that. And there's a host of other things that we would need to try and explain as Parliament begin its meeting. And the man who knows all about that, because he is the leader of government business in Parliament, he is the majority leader, he is Osei Kyei Mensah Bonsu, and he is my guest on PM Express tonight. Thank you once again, Mr. Kyei Mensah Bonsu, for your time on PM Express.
Thank you once again for having me.
Almost every time Parliament resumes from recess, I've noticed that we've had this knack of getting you to talk to us about what is yet to happen. But I've never asked you before, when you go on recess, you really get time to rest?
I don't go on recess.
Okay. The institution goes on recess, but Kyei Mensah Bonsu does not.
I don't go on recess.
Why is that?
First, because you are the leader of government business, and when we do close, you have to give an account on what you've done, what you ought to have done, what you programmed to do, things that we're able to do, and those things that unfortunately we're not able to do. You attend to all these things, and don't forget, I also have a ministry to attend to. So there's no recess for me, unfortunately.
I see. But you go to your constituency? Definitely.
I go to the constituency as well. I go to the constituency as well. In fact, over the weekend I was there. And the impending weekend would also see me there.
Okay, so there's no rest for you then, and you're back.
Absolutely not.
Full swing.
Sometimes I have to really make time, maybe 1 or 2 days to take it easy a bit. Otherwise, physically you feel it.
Yeah.
You feel the exhaustion, and it also affects your mental focus. So occasionally you have to renew, to recline, to renew your own physical activities and also your mental capabilities.
By the way, towards the end, we'll talk about your plans for retirement from Parliament, because you're not going back to contest next year. But let's come to parliamentary business. So this meeting, what are your top priorities for the House?
Well, I guess the highlight of this meeting is going to be the mid-year review of the budget. It was predicated on anticipations from the IMF. At the time, we had not completed or concluded the executive approval. As you rightly noticed or observe, the conclusion of the executive committee negotiations really happened when we were on recess, which is why last week a colleague of ours, in fact, indicated that it would be appropriate, perhaps, for the minister to come to Parliament to brief us about where we are.
So you agree with that, the minister coming to brief you?
Well, generally, I think that if Parliament, we have a function of financial control and also oversight. And if we have concluded, we need to know. The nation needs to know. So we speak to the nation through Parliament. But the issue is, he is coming with a mid-year review in July. Would it not be better if we stood it down so that when he comes with a mid-year review, he could brief us and also then submit the mid-year review? Other people are also saying that we should decouple the two. So we have to have some engagement with the minister. I had indicated to the House that I was going to have a discussion with the minister on that before Thursday, so that if it was going to be possible, perhaps we could have him tomorrow or Thursday. Unfortunately, I've not been able to have the discussion with him because over the weekend I was not in good shape. I only came out yesterday quite strong. So I want to see if it's possible to have that engagement with him between this evening and tomorrow. so that when we meet on Friday, I'll be able to tell them something significant.
What's your
if we
preference?
agree, if he does agree that he's able to make time, as we speak now, he's meeting with the World Bank. We don't want to do anything that will derail whatever they've come to do. So if there is an opportunity for him to brief the House, we would stand by to listen to him. But I have to have that engagement with him.
Do you have a preference whether to do it before or combine?
I have no fixation. I have no fixation on any. If it's possible, it's information dissemination. If it's possible for us to hear him before the July, usually the media review will come in the 3rd week or so of July. That will be about some 5 weeks
away
from now. So is it possible for him to do that? Or would he opt to combine the two? I have to have the discussion, and I do not want to think for him.
So in other words, he will elect.
It depends on the issues involved. If there are many strands which he needs to inform us about, and he has to come early, why not? After all, we are representatives of the people. But I'm saying that he has I do not know his work program. And so I will have the discussion with him first to see that he's not unnecessarily derailed. If it's possible, why not?
Talking about the IMF, the deal was concluded whilst you were on recess with the executive board. The program is out now. The IMF has sent a team to monitor implementation. First tranche of 600 million had hit our account. The finance minister has spoken about what the government intends to do with it. Your colleagues who wanted him removed had met the president, and they've been assured by the president, at least from what we're told after, that they should hold on until the deal is done with the IMF, and then the president said he will act on their request. Will they get what they were asking for?
When you say your colleagues, who do you mean?
I mean your majority colleagues, your MP colleagues who came together to make the request.
I just wanted us to have that distinction
Clarity,
made.
Absolutely.
Because just last week, one from your own system posed a similar question. It's about the same question, which I proffered an answer, and then later on, it was turned on its head. Yes, we had that engagement with the president, and I agree with you what the outcome was. But and then it was predicated on our concluding the negotiations with the IMF. But you see, technically, we're not even out of the woods yet, because I just told you that the World Bank is here now. I think the IMF will be coming, is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, to also look at a few things. And then we'll come for a review, I guess, in August or so. So you see, technically, the negotiations have not, finalized. We would expect them to be coming around, which means that there are outstanding issues that you have to be relating to. But as I said last week, sometimes when issues emerge and a lot of water passes under the bridge, perhaps it may be good to allow sleeping dogs to lie. But it's not a decision that I can take on my own. Maybe we have to have a meeting because, as I said, even though this whole thing emanated from a group within the majority, the entire caucus subsequently aligned. And so it became the position of the majority caucus. So we have to have a meeting, naturally, with the caucus, explain things to them. Maybe we may even have to involve the finance minister himself. And then we take it from there.
What about the president himself who made the promise?
Well, first of all, the finance minister was the sore point, so to speak, and he was at the receiving end. A few things have emerged, and our things are shaping up. Is it the case that we still should go on holding his feet to fire? Or is it the case that, as I said, sleeping dogs should be allowed to lie? It is a decision that will come from the caucus. Thereafter, we may then have to meet with the president.
So far, has any of the members on your side who were campaigning for this, have they reached out to ask you nudge you and say, listen, we're told the deal is over now? Should we act? Has anybody reached out yet?
Well, I would say one person sent me a post, asking me where we are. I will bring it up again. And my response was just the response that I've given you. And after he's not come back to me. And now is the entire caucus's position. So that's where we are. But I'm saying that we shall possibly meet, to finally put the matter to bed. That is, to go forward or not to go forward. The decision rests with the caucus.
What's your sense? You still feel there's that it was very intense
at the time?
At the time,
yes.
If reading the mood since you've been back, do you still feel there's an appetite to still hang on to this and push this forward?
If there's appetite, you will hear it perhaps.
That's what I'm asking you, because
if there is that appetite, you will feel
you
it.
Sense that the intensity then and now, all the water that got
the intensity has profoundly subsided. I'm not saying that there are no relics, but intensity has subsided significantly. But we take it from there. And as I'm saying, it's not one man's decision. It's the caucus's decision. So we shall further interrogate, and then we take a common position on that.
So on the economy, though, for which reason your colleagues said he should go, now you have the IMF program settled. And you made a point earlier in talking about Ken Ofori-Atta that, technically the program is still in play. But this is the implementation phase we are in now. The program itself, the deal has been concluded, monies have been disbursed. We're in the implementation phase, which will take 3 years. Technically, it's done. Implementation phase is where we are. So, door closed on this, isn't it? Now, on this subject. As far as the trigger for the consideration of removal or not is concerned, that has been achieved.
No, it's not closed. To the extent that the people are watching your steps. We just said that the first tranche of the 3 billion has been released. There's no automaticity that the next tranche would come.
That is dependent on you meeting
your compliance.
Yes.
So I'm saying to you that the door is not firmly closed yet.
But many will contest that position.
It depends. You went in for this negotiation, and the outcome is that, yes, we agree with you where you are. We intend to support you with this amount, subject to, should I say, good behavior, right? So they are watching every step. A government is elected to solve problems, right? There are problems. You want to solve them, but there are strictures now. You must comply. And the appetite for any government will be to do its best to satisfy the citizens. And that is where, it's a bit tight. So government will have to play it safe, whilst at the same time ensuring that development is not obliterated.
Give me your thoughts, briefly, on the IMF program that we've now concluded. It was a big issue. Now it's done. Implementation has begun. But you're going into an election here, which has always been a challenge for this country. What's your gut feeling telling you? You will not be running for parliamentary elections, but will there be the discipline? You know your people, you know your colleagues. Do you have the discipline to keep this in check and obey the strictures as the IMF program dictates to us in the next year going to the election?
Well, the man at the helm of affairs, the finance minister, is a tough nut. It's not a pushover. that thing we must all agree to. Of course, the issue that came up, I was talking about the heat at the time. He withstood it. He's a tough nut. So and he was the lead person in this. He knows the structures that have been imposed. I'm not too sure that he's one person who bend easily to satisfy government. So we'll see. But I agree with you that, as I also indicated at the very outset, that a government that is also, or an administration that is also facing an election, especially now that we are talking about breaking the 8, you want to let people see what you can do even in the face of these difficulties, what you can do to ensure that their standard of living does not depreciate. So you are looking at all those things. But if you're able to do that, a lot then will depend on, one, you cutting of profligate expenditure, and second, mobilizing domestic revenue, maybe upscaling it profoundly. So if you're able to upscale domestic revenue in a profound manner, that then will leave you some space to be able to engage in development. Right?
Well, the development is where the question is. Is the development done for political partisan purposes to win an election, or development done because you need to invest in that necessarily?
No. Look, we are constructing roads, for instance.
Yeah.
Now, you need to complete many of the roads that we've started. If acting in accordance with the proposals or the agreements with the IMF, we have to be completing these things. They're asking us not to start new projects, so to speak.
Finish the ones that you are.
Finish the ones that. So if you have money to do that, why not?
Focus on the ones that you're currently doing.
Precisely what I'm saying.
That's my guest. My guest is still the Majority Leader and Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Osei Kyei Mensah Bonsu. I'm going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about that controversial CI that, if passed, will make the Ghana card the sole document for voter registration. But also, we'll talk about the NPP's internal primaries, the primaries to elect a presidential candidate. You want to stay with me to hear Kyei Mensah Bonsu's thoughts on these two very controversial matters. Thank you for staying with us here on PM Express. My guest is the Majority Leader, Osei Kyei Mensah Bonsu, who is back in Parliament after that recess. Mr. Kyei Mensah Bonsu, one of the key things you have to deal with is this CI that the EC had proposed, the CI that will make the Ghana card the sole identity document for voter registration. Just before the recess, we saw a document that showed that from the Committee of the Whole, there is some consensus around this matter, and there was an addition of another mode of registration or identification for registration, which is the guarantor system, in addition to the Ghana card. What's the status of that agreement that was reached, that consensus? Is it still holding?
Well, the EC was purposed to introduce an instrument, a constitutional instrument in Parliament. As has become conventional these days, they will come to us, have some engagement. I'm not talking about the EC alone, but all sector ministers, if they are introducing any bill or legislation, any proposal, will come to us, have some engagement, behind the curtain engagement, before the bill comes to be late, or the proposal comes to be submitted to Parliament. So they were in the process of consultation, and then they were engaging the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs and subsidiary legislation committees on this. Issues can be raised about the use of the Ghana card. The use of the Ghana card is an obligation imposed on all of us by statute. That is the National Education Authority, the regulation that they brought. So we all subscribe to it, and it's passed. So it's part of our statute. Now the question that ensued was whether given the fact that at the time we had close to I think 1.5 million or so. I've forgotten the exact.
Outstanding.
People who had come of age and who needed Ghana cards, and who, through no fault of theirs, had not gotten registered and thereby acquired the Ghana cards. If you insisted that Ghana cards should be the only one to be used for purposes of registration, why should it be so? At the time also, the Finance Ministry had not released money to the Identification Authority for them to continue the registration process. So that was the difficulty that we found ourselves in, which is the reason why we suggested to them, to the Electoral Commission, that if they could amend the instrument. Fortunately, whilst the discussions were going on, the Minister for Finance released some monies to them, and they went back then to clear the backlog of, I think, over 600,000 that they had registered, but who the registrants had not been issued the cards.
Yeah.
Because I think the National Education Authority owed the suppliers.
Yeah.
So the monies were released to them. I want to believe that some progress, some useful progress have been made. But so we want to hear from them, from the Education Authority, how far they've gotten to, and then the Electoral Commission, and then we'll see.
But I remember this document that Parliament agreed. In fact, we wrote this down.
Yeah.
At Regulation 1, that notwithstanding subsection 3, a person who applies for registration but cannot provide as evidence of identification card issued by the national NIA, that person, it was stated in this document that we saw just before the break, that person or the person has not been registered by the NIA, or B, the person has been registered by the NIA but has not been issued with a national identification card. That person shall be required by the Commission to produce a relative to provide evidence of identification on oath in accordance with the provisions of the Oath Act. Wasn't this part of an agreement that was written down and still holding, which means we possibly will expect an amendment to the CI that was originally submitted by the EC?
Well, as I indicated, we on account of the proposals that came before us in respect of the instrument, we made these observations as a house. And I'm saying that it was contingent on where we were at the time, because there was that backlog. We've not gotten to have any discussions with them subsequent to this. And that is why I said we want to hear from the NIA, where they are, the EC, and if there are any outstandings with the Finance Ministry as well, we want to know before we'll see where we would be. But for now, I'm not able to speak to it because we've not had any subsequent engagements with the NIA. The Ministry of Finance said they had released some amounts to them. Is it sufficient to cover some ground to enable the EC do what they propose to do? Where are they standing now? We need to know all this. So
fair to say, there is no consensus on including another mode for registration.
First of all, let's get this straight. Because I remember some colleagues were saying that, well, if these proposals were not met, will not allow the Electoral Commission to present the instrument to Parliament. As I stated on the floor, nobody has any authority to prevent the EC from presenting the instrument in Parliament. You cannot.
But as we speak, they still have a month to lay it.
It's not come. It's not as if it's not.
They've not even presented to the
No.
We are in the pre-laying stage.
Yes. They have not come to us again. So maybe I have to knock their doors to know where they are with it. And I don't know what they have done with it, whether they factored some proposals into it. So I was just saying that nobody can physically prevent them from presenting the instrument. if we have acted as a collective and we are strong on that, when they bring it, and maybe after engaging these various people, the bodies, the NIA, the Ministry of Finance, the EC, and we think that we are not convinced or persuaded or think there's still a huge backlog, then the House then could hold together by mobilizing to say that no, we will not agree to this.
But you've done that already. The House as a whole sat and considered and then agreed to include guarantor.
I'm just suggesting to you that a lot of water has passed under the bridge. Since then, we need to further interrogate.
So that agreement was conditional.
Where we are, we need to interrogate these three bodies. Where are you, right? And then when we have done that, and they will know the status. And if to say that, okay, do we insist as a House that this thing ought to be done, right? Then we can make that determination. But let's not also forget that the Electoral Commission, per our Constitution, is an independent body. And even when they come to us and we make proposals to them, we cannot force them to take our proposals.
But I can tell you that,
but if we feel strongly about they not factoring our proposals, then we can stand together as a House, then to annul the instrument if it comes before us. But we need to, first of all, get to know where we are.
I spoke to the EC last week, and they were emphatic that as far as they are concerned, they only want the Ghana card and nothing else. And they are opposed to the inclusion of the guarantor system as part of the registration going forward. So that's their position. In fact, they've been in the House last week already.
I'm not aware of that.
Well, there's a confirmation of this by the EC's Director of Electoral Services.
I'm saying that I'm not aware.
Yeah. But that's their position.
Maybe then they came to meet the committee. I'm not aware that, and if they came to meet them, they didn't come through me.
But on the floor of Parliament, you had argued in support of the EC's position before. That the guarantor system, that the Ghana card, as they proposed, should be the preferred document.
That, as I'm saying, what came before us, the discussion that we had, we took a common position. And indeed, if I'm to even go on that path, we were discussing matters, and we said we should hold together on this. Then there was another discussion that we were having. And as a House, we said, okay, we should hold together on this one as well. There were two things before us that we should hold together on this. The other matter, we should also hold together as a House. Those matters came before us in plenary. Unfortunately, my colleagues broke ranks and did not agree that we should hold together. But that's another matter. That's another matter. This one, I think we should interrogate it on its face value. Let's get to know where we are. And that's why I'm saying that it's not only the Electoral Commission, because what they do is also predicated on the success of the NIA. So let's engage.
So you'll be hearing from the NIA again?
I think that we should.
Okay.
We'll first of all have to...
Because I remember they appeared before the House. The finance minister was there that day.
Yes, and that is when the promise, the assurances came.
And in fact, that later, before that sitting, the NIA boss confirmed that the monies have been paid. If I'm not mistaken, 100 million cedis.
That's why I'm saying that we should get to know where they are. I cannot talk from the top of my head.
Before the House will take a decision.
Yes, I cannot talk from the top of my head. Right, that, oh, we are going along, we annul it, or we allow it. I cannot talk that way unless I see what is being done by NIA and then the EC, because it is the performance of the NIA that will directly affect the success of the EC.
Other issue that you have to deal with, and this is constitutional, by the way, the Speaker of Parliament, since you've been away, James Achukwe Singh's verdict had come through. The Supreme Court had declared that his name should be expunged from parliamentary records. The Speaker last week said he had no clarity on this matter because there's no precedent for this. The standing of this does not provide for this expunging of a sitting member's name from the records, and that there's a need for some clarity. Do you agree with him that this is a grey area, and in spite of the Supreme Court's order, going forward, the House will possibly have to discuss how to implement that judgment?
Well, if you heard the Speaker, he was making some distinction. He said the ruling from the Supreme Court was not aimed at him. He didn't say that
it was aimed at the institution of
the Speaker
yes.
should expunge or cause the expunging of
that you his name from the records.
His name from the records. And then, so to the extent that it was directed at Parliament, he thinks that Parliament as an institution should be acting as a collective to undertake that exercise. Then he also went on to say that the clerks at table should, on account of that, reinstate his name in the official records as being absent. I was baffled. Honestly, I was really, really taken aback by the Speaker's own directive. The good thing is that I think he had subsequent advice
that,
from the clerks at table and backtracked. Because if there's no vacancy, you know that an election, a by-election is going on. And you have caused the clerk to write to the EC that the vacancy has occurred. So why then do you come to Parliament to say that they should reinstate his name as being absent with or without permission? I was a bit taken aback. But as I said, fortunately, he backtracked on that. The second matter is the unclarity. Then I asked myself, on many occasions, the Speaker has called on the table of affairs to expunge what a member might have said. How is it done? How is it done? On many, many occasions. So how is it done? So if they say that his name should be expunged, and you say that, well, you find it difficult, I disagree with you.
So for you, there's clarity on this?
I think there's clarity. And see,
so how must it happen?
The Constitution provides. I think one of the critical issues he raised was, if you extrapolate, is it the case that maybe all that he has said, decisions that he might have participated in, should be expunged or what? I thought it was a bit overstretching it. One, as far as I'm concerned, the ruling of the Supreme Court is predicated on Article 97. 97, 1E, which says, a member of Parliament shall vacate his seat in Parliament if any circumstances arise such that, if he were not a member of Parliament, would cause him to be disqualified or be ineligible for election under Article 94 of this Constitution. It had to do with his own allegiance to a country other than Ghana, which by his own submission was blunt, that he didn't owe allegiance to any other country apart from Ghana. Now subsequently it comes out. So on account of that, the people believing that he didn't owe allegiance to any other country, they voted for him. It comes out that he did owe allegiance to another country other than Ghana. On account of that, the courts have ruled that he was therefore ineligible to have contested. And so this then kicks in. This thing has arisen. It's been found out that you were not qualified to contest. So when they said that you ought not have been a member of Parliament ab initio, it's a reason why they are saying that if we're not a member of Parliament, you cannot then be described as a former member of Parliament, because we are not qualified to have contested.
That is not in doubt. It's about how do you implement it practically.
No. So I'm saying to you that that is it. But you do know the Constitution also provides that if you are not part of a body, you are not to be part of a body, a commission or any other body, and inadvertently you find yourself there, if decisions are taken and you participate in the decision, and you are found out subsequently that you had no place there and you are removed, the decisions that you participated in should still hold. That's constitutional. So how is anybody saying that
everything is done up until the Supreme Court judgment on the floor and decisions participated in
would stand
or will hold for you?
Yes, all will hold. Other than that, let's assume that of course, I keep insisting that the election of the Speaker, for instance, yes, when they were counting votes for Speaker Okwei, it came out that one of the two of the votes got spoiled, right? Now, it was presumed that for the minority, they had 137. Ours then got reduced to 136, right? Yeah. It was presumed that because his votes were not counted. And that's why I have insisted that he was chosen by consensus where we got to. But assuming he participated, and maybe we had figures to say that he had 136, 137. And now we are sponging his name. He didn't belong. It will come to 136. So then we have to. The speaker loses his seat as well. No.
Okay.
I mean, all decisions that he has taken part in would stand, and that is constitutional.
So that's your position on that.
It's not my position, it's the position of the Constitution.
That's your interpretation of the Constitution.
How else do you interpret it?
Well, that's yours. I'm sure.
How else do you interpret it?
If the Speaker was here today, he would disagree with you.
If he disagrees, then it means that if he disagrees, then we'll have to have another vote on him. If you have to go that hog. But I don't think so. Whatever decisions that he has taken part in will still hold. Yes.
Let me ask you, as we wrap up, your party, the MPP, they've begun the processes to elect a presidential candidate. Last week, the chairman of the party's Council of Elders has suggested on Joy FM that a consensus candidate would have been better, would have been the ultimate interest of your party. Do you agree with
Last week?
Yeah, this is, let's say 2 weeks ago. That is Hakma Osei Kyei Mensah was speaking on our morning show and make this point. You agree with him?
Well, I totally agree. And Hakman, my uncle, is a Latter-day Saint. I've been speaking to this since 2020, even before our election. That is the second stanza of President Akufo-Addo's era. And I was saying that I thought after crossing the bridge in 2021, this may become an issue. And I thought that the two of them registered strongly on the radar.
To who?
Dr. Bawumia, the Vice President, and Alan Chamatin, the then Minister for Trade and Industry. So I started some discussions. And indeed, that was 2020. I spoke strongly to these. And even within my own caucus, a few of the MPs, I spoke to them. And 2021, I went to Mr. Kojo Mpieni, who I know to be one of the major or key supporters of Alan. Look, we'll be heading towards 2024. This is my thinking. And then he suggested that, okay, it's good, but for anybody to speak to this from the top of the person's head will be difficult. Who should be taking as the candidate and who should be the running mate?
So your proposal then was one of them should be candidate, the second, the other should be the person's running mate.
Yes.
So either Alan is a candidate
and he said that
vice versa.
In that case, he suggested that we should have some research done, right? And then they will come up with their own findings. And he even said that we shouldn't even limit to just one opinion poll, but maybe to do two. Maybe after the first one, wait for about 3, 4, perhaps even 6 months, and conduct the second survey. I thought that was going to be useful. Then he suggested, the two of us agreed that I should speak to the former president, which I did subsequently. And he said that, well, elections...
As in John Kufuor.
President Kufuor. Elections have served the party. And this is something new that I was proposing. It may not sit well with some people. So he thought that we should follow the trend of elections.
And let the delegates decide.
And let the delegates decide. And I was, telling him that, yes, we are a democratic party. I thought that consensus building is part of democracy. But he said, well, as they say, if it's not broken, you don't fix it. He believes in contest. And he thinks that we should allow contest to take place. He's a former president, a former leader, a former de facto leader of the party. If he speaks to you, you must listen. So that's how I dropped my guard. Now, you remember that subsequent to that, That was about some 6 months or so after. Nana Kumia and I had some discussions, and I floated this idea to Nana Kumia, and said, he thought it was a good idea that needs to be canvassed strongly. Nana then went on one of your sister stations and advocated for this. He was taken to the cleaners, and so we are where we are now.
Have you given up on the idea, or you think it's so relevant?
If it is, I think it's still relevant, but how are you going to do it? Now that nominations have opened, people have filed, who is going to agree to, step aside for the other? In any event, now, there are many players in it. So if we had begun earlier, where at the time we were seeing only these two people, right? Today, people who are testing waters go to places and they are saying that, well, I'm going. My own colleague, Yanabo Kerohio Japan, for instance, has gone to my constituency to tell them, and he's gone to so many constituencies, that he thinks that he should be the man. At the time, we had not factored him. So today, how can you do anything and then not involve those of them who are filed? It's going to be a tough call. That's why I'm saying that it's about late.
In fact, many say it's too late, yes, but you possibly be a beneficiary of the current status quo, because you've been suggested as a likely running mate to Dr. Bawumia.
I don't know where these things are coming from. I'm not too sure that anybody tried to foist President Kufuor's running mate on him. Nobody foisted Dr. Bawumia on Kufuor. Let us do the right thing, and when we have finished, the person should be left alone to make his own choice.
You don't want it if he suggests you?
My uncle, Kwampieni, is the one who said whoever joins the police force without aspiring to be IGP. Everybody wants to grow in politics. But you see, in politics, sometimes it's not always the best who win. It's people whose names may resonate. I'm not saying that I'm not capable. Perhaps if it comes to even the presidential slot, I believe I can hold my own. But you see, as I said in Akan, all the fingers are not equal. And also, I can't say at any given time, the system has a way of throwing up people whose names would resonate more than others.
Are you saying that
JH Mensah, my great uncle, was the one who said, what's all called such contest? So,
you're not ruling yourself out, are you?
I'm saying that nobody should foist anybody on who emerges. If it is Dr. Bawumia who emerges, right? It should not be said that, Kyei Mensah Bonsu should be your running mate, right? It should not be said that this man or this woman should be your running mate. The choice should be left strictly.
But it's definitely.
I'm not the only one whose name has emerged. I know.
Others have been mentioned.
Yes, others have been mentioned.
Yeah. But yours comes
and those others who have been mentioned, some of them have mentioned me.
Yeah.
I've also mentioned those others who have been mentioned.
To put it bluntly, you don't want it if it comes to you. If he says, Kyei Mensah Bonsu,
I've not said so. I've not said so.
Okay. I'm
only telling you that this talk should cease.
Why shouldn't it? It's a healthy conversation.
No, I'm saying it should cease. Don't put any impediment or obstacle. Don't yoke. If you are saying, Dr. Bawumia, I want to believe that you think that maybe currently maybe his flag is perhaps in front of the contestants. That's why you are mentioning him. But if that's the reason, let's not yoke him with anything. Let us finish the contest. If he emerges victorious, he should be left to propose his running mate to the National Council of the party.
And if he puts your name up, you accept it?
I have nothing useful to add to what I've said. Evans, why do you want to take me to the the place of, let me not conclude that sentence.
To clarify, you support Dr. Bawumia, don't you?
I support the person that I see has the greatest competence and greatest potential to win victory for us 2024.
And that is Dr. Bawumia?
I support the person who has the greatest potential
Dr. Bawumia, many say, has that potential. He's been the vice president.
Dr. Bawumia, what did you say? Many say has the potential. Well, I'm a leader. I go with what most of the people say. If most of the people in my party are saying Dr. Bawumia, I'm a leader. I have to align with them.
Okay, so you align with that view then, that Dr. Bawumia?
According to you, most of the people are saying that it's Dr. Bawumia. I align with what most of the people say.
Okay.
That will make it easier for us to break the 8.
And another suggestion...
So these are not my words, they are your words.
Well, another suggestion is that running mate should come from the Ashanti region. Dr. Bawumia, also because, Dankwa, Dombo, etc., and that is a time for, and that should be an important factor in considering who to elect next time. In the interest of your own party, the party must be seen to have done justice to all the traditions that formed it. You agree with that position?
Well, the Constitution provides that in recruiting people to public office, we should have gender balance. It's not for nothing that the Constitution says so. It provides that we should have our eyes on regional balance. It's not for nothing that the Constitution so provides. The Constitution even goes further to talk about ethnic balance and also religious balance. So all these things should factor in whoever. But the tradition has many other facets as well. You spoke about Dankwa Buzia Dombo.
Yeah.
I believe that there are other people that also contributed significantly. The SG Antos, also from other places. But as far as I'm concerned, if this should happen, can you remember? Can you think of the kind of motivation that you provide other people who also contributed significantly to the UP tradition, to also know that they also, as a champion used to say, are part of the one people.
That is if the flag bearer comes from the north.
In one nation, with one destiny.
That is if the flag bearer comes from the north.
By what you are saying, if we should go to Bawumia, by what you are saying, that most people are saying this, I'm saying that if you should go to him, to also inspire other people to perhaps in future also come up. Because we have the Antos, we have those people who belong to the Gashi who joined the UP tradition. And the birth of this UP tradition, in fact, the formation of the UGCC at the instance of Blay and others. The Walter region, I forgot about, and Metoro Williams as well. They are all part of it. So let's see, in molding our party, giving the party a national character, how far can we travel so that everybody will know that they belong. And our delegates should consider this factor in making the decision. Delegates should look at the imperatives of the Constitution, which is what I've alluded to. And just before we wrap up, I mean, how is the preparation towards retirement from Parliament for you? Because next year you're not running again. In 2025, I won't have this conversation with you again. Even if I talk to you, be a private citizen. What did you say that I would not be running again? But you're not running again. I may be walking. You definitely be walking, but not running. But you'll be walking as a private citizen in 2025. Are you preparing for retirement? Entering Parliament is not the only public place office. There may be other places that one could. But I'm curious. I mean, you have a year and a half to go. Yes. How are you enjoying your last days? I mean, do you think about it? Yes, why not? You think about it. And even though the party is proving difficult to what I've said, regional party, Ashanti regional party. And,
they still want you to run?
At the national party, but I've taken a decision, and I'm not sure that I'm going back. And I've been going to my constituency, touring the constituency, and I've been telling them that I'm not running again. So that is it. That is for Parliament. But I may possibly be in other places. Who knows?
It's still in politics?
Certainly, I'm not going to leave politics or partisan politics. I'm not going to leave.
Do you have any anxiety when you think about it? Because this is what you've done. This is all we've known you as for decades now.
Yeah.
Do you have any anxiety when you think about it?
Oh, not...
The fear of the unknown?
The fear of the unknown, no. But it's that my wife knows that sometimes is criticizing that you put greatest emphasis on your work and little emphasis on your familial life. So she's going to have much more of me than Parliament would have me. But as I'm saying, there could be other areas that you would engage, you know. So let's see what tomorrow holds. I have my own plans, but we'll see.
Yeah, that plan may include possibly Kyei Mensah Bonsu as a vice president of the Republic of Ghana. True.
Evans.
I'm just saying, it could be. Kyei Mensah Bonsu, Vice President of the Republic of Ghana.
Lead me not into temptation. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And enjoy the rest of your evening.